Roscoe. I'm loud anyhow, and obnoxious and animated. I've been sitting all week thinking about, man, I understand the mic thing's going. I might scare some folks, right? I go by Roscoe. That's a nickname I was given years and years and years ago, and it stuck with me, and I kind of like it. You know, when I was out there doing my thing, it was my alter ego, and so I could hide. You know, I had a profession, but I also had a, you know, I was involved in a lot of things that weren't professional. And so, I started living by this name, Roscoe. But when I got into the rooms, I was told that for the spirit of anonymity, right, that you should know who I am. So my government name is Stephen Roscoe, and I'm alcoholic. And I always start off with a little anecdotal story and kind of give you an idea of who you're dealing with, right, with the way that I used to be, right? And for the first 14 years of my life, I was raised in Savannah, Georgia. And my dad was an alcoholic, son, and he was hitting his bottom. So all of the things that you would expect from a low-bottom drunk we were experiencing as children, right? So home life was really not good. We took to the streets a lot. And my dad got locked up, and my mother saw an opportunity, and the juvenile court judge suggested that it'd be best if she moved me inland about 100 miles to my grandmother's house. And it's in a little small community called Millen, Georgia. And in this little small community, as I'm sure in a lot of small communities in the South in particular, we had these gatherings every year. Ours was called the Fair on the Square, right? It's just where the whole community comes out and gathers once a year, and we cook bratwursts and make belts and macrame and, you know, have arts and crafts, and it's really a good time for the whole community. You know, there might be 4,000 or 5,000 people in the whole county come and fellowship together and see one another and chit and chat, and it's always a good time, you know. One year, somebody brought a gorilla. Now, we're from South Georgia, so we've never seen a gorilla. And of course, this was the attraction, right? Everybody talked all the last 3 or 4 days before this event is, man, somebody's bringing a gorilla, right? So we're all anxious to see it. And we come up and it's nothing big, man. This guy's got a cage and a little tent, and you walk through, you pay $5 or whatever it was, right? And you see this gorilla, and he smokes cigarettes if you throw him to him, he'll throw some crap at you, and, you know, gorilla stuff, right? And it was pretty cool, nothing extravagant. You know, we saw a gorilla, we went about our business, and that night I'm at my house, I'm listening to our local radio station, right? And a little beep, beep buzzer comes on and says, the gorilla has escaped. Right? And it's like, man, okay, we got a little action in Milton, Georgia today, right? The gorilla's on the loose. And it says, do not approach. If you see this animal, do not approach him, because he is a very dangerous beast, right? I mean, he's super strong and all that. And it's like, yeah, I probably not going to do that. So they give me this number, right? And I jot the number down. I don't think anything else about it, right? Who expects that you're going to see the gorilla? Right? So I go to bed, the next morning, get up, cook breakfast, and I'm over there, and looking out my kitchen window, I'm washing my plate. And I see Bigfoot, right? What I think to be Bigfoot walking through the backyard. I'm like, man, that's cool as hell, right? Bigfoot. There really is a Bigfoot, right? And then I start thinking, that might be that gorilla. So I sit there and I watch him, you know, and he lumbers over, and I got a real tall, straight pine tree right out the window. And it's probably as far from here to the back of the room right there. And the gorilla walks up to the tree, and he skinnies up the tree. So I think, man, I got that number. Let me call the number, right? And I'm calling, and somebody answers the phone and says, Gorilla Wrangler. And I did that. Gorilla Wrangler. He said, yeah, I'm a Gorilla Wrangler. I said, well, I'm pretty sure that your gorilla is in my tree. And he said, don't go out there. This is a dangerous animal. He's super strong. He will tear you apart. Do not approach him. He got my address. He said, I'll be there in just a few minutes. I said, okay. Well, the anticipation got the best of it. I'd walk out there and check this gorilla out, get a close-hand view of him, right? And about the time I get to the tree, now I'm expecting the SWAT team to roll in. They got machine guns and dart guns and nets and guys in black outfits with masks on and the shield. CERT teams, man, y'all know what CERT team is, right? Come on. I'm expecting the CERT team to pull up on, and this old kid pulls up in like a 25-year-old pickup. And on the side of it, it's got Gorilla Wrangler. up in the yard. He's got a trailer and a cage in the back of the on that trailer, and he gets out, and the little Jack Russell Terrier, about a little bit bigger than that little dog that this beautiful lady's got in here today, gets out and he runs around, starts running around the tree. You know, he got him something treed, right? The old man starts pulling these tools out of his truck. And I'm just standing there watching him, right? He pulls this long pole out, got a point on the end of it. He pulls a pair of handcuffs out and he puts them in his pocket, and that little dog's running around him. He grabs a pistol and turns around and hands it to me, and he hasn't said anything to me yet. Nothing, hasn't said a word. You know, I said, after a second, when he gets all the stuff, he's kind of looking at the tree. I said, so where's your team at? He said, I don't have a team. I said, you mean you gonna get that gorilla, you are gonna get that gorilla out of that tree by yourself? He said, yeah, man, do it all the time. I said, if you don't mind my asking, how are you going to do that? He says, easy. I'm going to take this long pole with this point on the end of it, and I'm going to climb up the tree under it. And when I get close enough, I'm going to take this pole, and I'm going to poke him in the ass. He said, of course, that's going to bother the gorilla. And he's going to turn loose of the tree and fall on the ground. Now, when he hits the ground, that little dog right there, you see, I've got him trained to run over there and grab hold of his jewels just as hard as he can find them. And I mean, it's a vicious sight. It's traumatizing. And he said, of course, that's going to bother the gorilla. And he's going to reach down to grab the dog. And when he does, I'm going to put his handcuffs on him, and then I'm just going to load him in the trailer right there and be on our way. Yeah, that might work. Those good ideas are simple, right? I said, all right. I said, well, why would you give me this pistol? He said, well, there's always a chance when I poke that gorilla in the ass with this stick, he grabs the stick and knocks me out the tree. If that happens, I want you to shoot that damn dog. So now you know I'm a liar. I'm known to embellish a tale or two. But there were some nuggets of truth in there. I was raised in Savannah by an alcoholic father who hit his bottom. I was forced through the juvenile court system to move inland. And there is a fair on the square. Now, everything after that, remember, like Matthew said last night, I'll tell you like I remember it. You know, I've been coming to this retreat since, I don't know, 18, 19. COVID kind of screwed that up, you know, trying to keep up with it. But, so I know the layout, right? And I know that, you know, I spoke one night on Thursday night, and Saturday nights, man, I've keynote speakers, awesome job, Matthew. That was great. Samantha, she's a member of my home group, and I know her and love her greatly. And you know, everybody did a fabulous job, right? But I also knew that the Sunday morning meeting was like the spirituality meeting. And I don't know if you got the right guy, right? Because if you walk around with me in a day's time and listen to what came out of my mouth, you'd be like, yeah, he's not that spiritual guy. He's trying to claim he is, you know. But I've had some really cool experiences with what I've come to understand to be God, right? And I don't say that lightheartedly because I was raised not with God. My dad was a low-bottom drunk. Our home life was in turmoil. There was a lot of violence. There was a lot of crime. It was just a terrible situation. And then when we moved inland, and I'm still stuck with me, and so that it perpetuated, right? So, you know, I started out early, 10 years old, I'm smoking dope and doing this stuff, you know, back early teens, I'm drinking, and all this stuff's going on. And we all know the story, right? This thing progresses, and all the consequences and circumstances progress with it, right? So the idea of God was something, in my mind, was something that an 8-year-old, right? I'd go to Sunday school and somebody would tell me some things. I thought it was a concept that parents use to keep their children in line. I thought it were a bunch of fables and fairy tales, and it's cool when you're this big, but when you get grown, it has a little impact on your life, right? So there was no concept, no idea, or a lot of attitude around God. But I didn't have a concept of it, right? It was just fables. And like Matthew was sharing last night, you know, I could tell you all sorts of the jags that we went on as an alcoholic and a drug addict because I am a fiend. right? When I start drinking, I cannot stop. So I qualify to be in this room of Alcoholics Anonymous. But there's a number of fellowships that I qualify to be in for the same reason, right? I could be in a Sex Anonymous group, a Readers Anonymous group, a Gamblers Anonymous group. I'm in a Cocaine Anonymous group. I'm in an Alcoholics Anonymous group. And if there's any more anonymouses, I'm sure that if given the right thought process, I could qualify for that one as well, right? So I'm not going to get into this. It's kind of where these things took me. I had 2 broken marriages, and all the things that go along with broken marriages had happened, right? I mean, I've been at the bottom. I lived in my car. I walked the streets. I ate out of dumpsters. I did all the stuff, right? I've been a successful businessman in my community, and I've been the guy that they say, look at that guy, right? I've been all of that. But this is about God and a God consciousness, right? I was watching this movie last night. I got back excited. Big Dan, he's my new hero, man. The DJ last night. Yeah, that's me 25 years from now, I hope. Because he was getting it, man. He was getting down. So I'm excited from the dance, and I've heard all these great speakers, and I'm inspired and a bit intimidated, right? And I go up to the room, and I'm wired up. It's about 11:30, and I turn on the TV, and I'm just watching this movie. It looked kind of senseless to me, something good to pass some time. And it was something to do with the Greek gods and Zeus and his son and Pegasus or something. Perseus, right? I don't know about one of those guys. But anyhow, it was something I could just numb out to and kind of get in that spot where I could go to sleep. And I didn't think much about it until this morning, right? There was one little part in this movie where this guy said, I'm going to do this as a man, right? Now, he's supposed to be half man, half Zeus, or God. And he says, I'm going to do this as a man. And so when I'm waking up this morning, you know, right when you first wake up, that good meditation, man, is when you just get up and you're kind of still in that little fog, but you're coming out of it, man. And I mean, God's putting on a show for you, right? He's telling me all these things going on in your mind. And I think about that. I think, I'm going to do this as a man, right? And the first word that popped in my mind was God conscious, right? A consciousness, awareness, an awakening to God. And then I started thinking about what that looked like in my life, right? How all these years I did this as a man. And where that landed me up on June the 25th of 2014, I've got a text my sister sent me the other day, and I'll probably keep forever because she's held on to it for 11 years. 10 and a half years. She texted me on the 25th day of June 2014. She'd been sober 10 months. She said, are you all right? And my response was, I'm right as rain. 8 hours later, I sent her a text. I'm tired. I need help. I'm ready to get sober. Right? And that was what she'd been waiting on. So she comes and scoops me up, right? Now this night, those 8 hours in between there, I do what I do, man. I'm a big fiend, right? So I'm sitting in this little room with an 8 by 12 concrete building behind one of my sister's house with no electricity, no water. I've got a quart of Tennessee moonshine, and I won't mention things like this again. 8 ball of cocaine and 120 methadone tablets. And these are the things that I've used over the last decade or so to make me all right. Right? And I'm no better with them than I was without them. So I'm in this spot, and I've got a 44 Magnum that I allegedly acquired in a home invasion, which was my borrowing chip for my next little re-up, right? And I'm trying to think of a way, right, that I could still do this as a man. I'm contemplating shooting this to myself. And I'm thinking about the desperation. You know, I didn't know that word or the way it was relative to us until I got into the rooms. But desperation is an awesome place to be. But for me, it's not the place to be, right? Because if I'm desperate, I've still got one more move I can make as a man, right? I can shoot myself. And that was my intention. And I'm sitting there, and the 44 Magnum's got a barrel on about this long, and I'm short and stocky, and my arms aren't that long, and I want to make sure that if I pull this trigger, this thing hits me where I want it to hit me. So I've got it between my knees, right? And it's pointed right up at my face, and I'm cocking it back to halfway, which is on safety. And I'm trying to get the courage up to cock it all the way back. And as soon as I'm thinking, if I ever get it all the way back, I'm going to pull the trigger. And this is over, right? I'm doing this as a man. That's what a man would do. And I can't cock it back. And finally, after some period of time, who knows how long, it seemed like hours, but it's probably a minute or so, I decided that I'm not going to be able to do this, and I put the pistol down. And there was no great revelation. No stand up, hallelujah, God save me. I didn't have a God. Right? Why would I call out to God? There was not a concept in my mind that I could call out to. All I knew was that I was done. And that there was nothing I was going to be able to do as a man to fix this. And I had no idea what to do next. And that was literally where I was at. I slumped my shoulders down and hung my head. And all these things, right, that I've been using all these years to make me all right were present. I'm flush, man, I'm good. And there's nothing I can do to get out of this funk, man. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what to do next. And so I didn't try to do anything next. I resolved myself to the idea that perhaps the things I was doing on this table would kill me, and maybe they'll do it tonight. So I continued to do what I was doing, and then the downers override the upper, and I roll over here on this mat and go to sleep. I didn't ever sleep, I slept stuff off. Right? At some point, the methadone filters through with the cocaine still prominent, and I'm back up, and I'm drinking, I'm doing my thing. And this has been the process for the past, 7 or 8 years. I hadn't drunk sober breath. And so the next morning was no different. I roll out, I take a shot at whiskey, I do a little bit of some stuff. I go on to this little job I had because I had to work. I mean, I was bad to steal stuff. Trying not to, this is spirituality talk, man. Trying not to say those words, but. So I was prone to steal, but I didn't really like doing it. So I had a little job, something I had to keep this deal going. So I go to this job, and a guy catches me in the bathroom doing what I do, and it turns into this big old stink. And I've known this guy my entire life, right? Or his entire life. He's a good bit younger than me. And he said, Roscoe, I used to look up to you. But I have no idea who you are. Right? And something about that stuck. Right? And I looked at that kid and I said, Willis, do you think I want to be the way that I am? I have no idea why I do the things that I do. I have no idea. I see the same thing you see. Right? I see the man that was up here, prominent in his society. I see the man that had plenty of money, had plenty of stuff. I see the man that had a wife and kids and a community that respected him. And I see who I am now. I have no idea how I got here, and I have no idea how to get back. And he said, why don't you call your sister, right? She's the one that had gotten sober. I said, no, man, any other time in my life there would be a big argument around. I'm not calling her, she's an AA, she thinks she's all that. And I ain't doing that. Right? This time. I said, okay. So I call. Of course, she doesn't answer because the last time she answered it cost about $3,000. Right? I come up with something about somebody taking something from me. And she sent me some money out of pity. So she learned her lesson. At that time, soon-to-be ex-wife said, don't give him no more money. He's lying. Which we all know I can do, right? And I said, okay, well, I'll try her later. He said, no, man, text her. And there again, it would have been one of those arguments. I ain't texting her. I've told you, man. I'll call her when I'm ready. Leave me alone. This is none of your business, right? That would have always been the conversation that was had if somebody would have confronted me. The day before that would have been that conversation. Leave me alone, man. I'm good. I'm right as rain. This time, I say, okay. And I text her back. What I told y'all, I text her. I'm tired. I'm ready to get sober. And I hit send, and the phone rings. And she said, are you serious? I said, yeah. I'm over it, man. I'm done. Now, I didn't know what drug addiction, alcoholism, right? I identify as alcoholic because I love the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous got me sober. I believe it is a way of living that will solve all my problems, and I'll get into some of that in just a minute. So I'm going to be respectful of it, right? But I'm done, and I am resolutely never doing this again. And the guy goes to get my last paycheck, right? I had to get him to go quit my job for me because I ain't got the balls to do it. I ain't got the stones, right? I can't do that. The judge, man, I'm going to rehab and get my money, right? He owed me about a week's pay and then 2 weeks vacation. So I'm sitting in this big warehouse by myself and I'm thinking, man, you know, I owe my buddy about $120. Man, I don't want to have to call him when I get out or wherever I'm going. I'll go ahead and call him now. Just tell him to come get his money. And while he's on his way, he can bring the 8 ball. And so I had gone, and this is all for 2020, looking back, right? This is all, I see this now. But at the time, that did not seem unnatural. It wasn't unnatural to me. It was as natural as taking a breath of air. That I go from being done, I am done, to getting an 8 ball in 3 minutes. Yeah. Right? I'm not done anymore. And there's nothing in that seemed out of the ordinary. There's nothing in that seemed crazy or insane. It's just the way it was, right? And that's what happened. He goes and gets it, he brings it, and I give him his money, and we settle up, and that's the end of that, right? My sister finally gets down there. She was north of Atlanta. I'm from a little small town. She drove down and got me, and drove me to Miami, Florida, right? Because this Mr. Prominent citizen of his community didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a passport. I didn't have a piece of mail with an address on it because I didn't have an address, right? So I have no means of getting from here to Seattle, Washington, which is the program that she had picked out. She had to drive me to Miami, Florida, to detox, right? We go through the detox deal, and they give me all the Valium, which is pretty cool, right? I get sobered up. I fall in love with this woman that's in there for smoking crack. Now, man, we get get married. You know, she got a husband. She gonna divorce him, right? But this on day 3. So I'm in love, and hell, I've been sober 28 minutes, and life's already getting better, right? The promises are coming true. So we do all the little, detox deal, and it comes time to leave, man. I'm on like day 7, and I'm leaving on the 4th of July. And I'm sitting in this room, and I'm scared to death, man, because I've never been sober that I could remember for 7 days. Right? I could make it to about 4, but on that 4th day, something in here would wake up. And I'd get antsy, and I just couldn't, irritable, restless, discontent. I wasn't all right. And now I'm at day 7. And I'm thinking, man, I've been at this deal for 38 years, 36 years. I was 46, or 30 years. I was 46 years old when I got sober. I was 10 years old when I used my first substance. We got a 28-day program picked out. And I just don't know that that's long enough for me. I just don't, so I'm scared. I know for a fact that 7 days, this is sober I've been in memory. I know for a fact, more than anything in the world, I do not want to drink or drug again. I know it. I mean, it is every fiber of me. I don't want to do it again. So I'm going to do this because this is what somebody suggested that I do. I don't think it's enough, but I'm going to do it. And so about 3 hours after that, right, I sit up all night waiting on this thing, and about 3 hours after that, this counselor comes down and says, your sister's on the phone, same sister that I text. She said, she wants to talk to you. So I go down to the phone. Now, my sister's expecting this long argument because that's the kind of person I am. I'm always right. I'm going to do it my way. I don't need your help, blah, blah, blah. So she's geared up, right? She's been praying on this thing. She's ready for it. And when I pick up the phone, she says, Bubba, the Bubba's my name too, just by the way. Roscoe, Bubba, Stephen, no bitch, whatever. All the above. She said, Bubba, you've been at this thing for a long time. I said, yeah. And I don't say nothing else. And she waits, waiting on the rebuttal. And she said, I've been doing some research. And she waits. She said, I found a place in Louisville 6 months long, and it is quiet. And she's waiting on the rebuttal. Now, in that interim, what I'm thinking is, man, that's crazy. I was just thinking last night that I need something long term. That's not what I said, but that's what I thought, right? And of course, what I said was 6 months. Are you freaking kidding me? You know how long 6 months is? That's almost a year. My life's going to be a train wreck in 6 months. And she said, your life's already a train wreck. Touche. So I say, okay. Right? Say, okay, I land in this place, plug for it, Bridge of Hope, Louisville, Georgia. I landed at the Bridge of Hope, and this place is not a treatment center, it's a recovery center, meaning by the time you make it to a place like the Bridge of Hope, you've probably exhausted all other opportunities at getting sober. You've done all the 28 days, you spent all the $500,000 insurance money, you've been to prison 4 or 5 times, you are at the very end of the road. Right, that's this place. And what I've discovered was, they're not there to diagnose me. They're there to teach me how to live with the thing that I've got, right, which is alcoholism. And the way that they do that is through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I knew what AA was, like everybody in the world knows what AA is. My daddy had been in AA, or been at AA, because he died drunk, so he was never in it. But he had been at it a lot. And the way I thought, it didn't work. Right? And so I had shunned AA, I had shunned treatment. So this is my first crack at it, right? My first crack. And my sister drops me on and says, I'll pay for this one time. Because I had $78. That's how much money I had. And of course, now I walk in detox like I'm Big Ike. I'm all businessman, I'm strapped up, I'm telling these people how they need to do that over there. And this woman looks at me and says, you know you're in detox, right? Come on, man, wake up. So, I'm in this place, man, and it's new for me, right? There was a surrender involved in that. And I don't know any of this language. I'm just kind of acting on what I've got going on right here, right? I don't know how to put words to it. I'm just kind of going along with something. And then after a week or two, you get to know there's 50-something people in, you get to know everybody's name, there's a bunch of rules, and you start getting written up, getting consequences, like, yeah, this place sucks, right? I mean, golly, I can't believe it. Then you start, your roommates are paying your ass, and everything going on, right? And there was this old man who became my sponsor, responsible for the first 7 years of my recovery, and then he passed away. But he would come in there, he would bring step studies into the facility, and if you wanted him to, he would sit and work the steps with you. It wasn't a part of the curriculum, but he would do it. And there was something about this old man. He was 70-something years old. He'd been a preacher, right? He had no drug experience whatsoever, which kind of, I don't understand what me and this man have in common. But he'd sit up there and he'd explain these steps, and he'd tell us his experience with the steps. And there was something that was attractive about it, right? I didn't know what that something was. I just knew that I liked it. And we started spending a little time together, and as the time progressed, he started noticing changes in me, right? I'm not this happy, jovial person anymore. I'm starting to get irritable, restless, and content, right? I'm a prey to misery and depression, right? He sits me aside. He says, Roscoe, what's going on with you? And I said, I don't know, Kevin. I'm in a bad spot, man. My roommate's asshole, and food sucks, and this place sucks. I mean, I'm just not in a good spot. Drug addiction, didn't say that. I'm thinking it. And he starts 12-stepping me, right? And you would think this man ain't no 12. You don't listen to a 12-step to somebody that's in a program. But he knew that I didn't know what was going on with me. He knew I did not know what the characteristics and symptoms of alcoholism were. See? He knew that I thought my problem was drinking and drugging, and now that I don't have drink or drugs, I'm fine. See, he knew that I thought that. And he was right. I thought that. He sat down and explained to me that I had a spiritual malady, which was like somebody speaking Greek to me, right? I don't know what the hell that means. He says that the spiritual malady is created through selfishness and self-centeredness, right? And the way that I interpreted that information is that the problem I have is me. Now, the good thing about discovering a problem is usually the solution is discovered with it. So if I discover that the problem is me, automatically I know that the solution is not me. And he told me I needed to sit down and find some experiences with not me. Now, at first, I don't have a clue what the hell he's talking about. I have no idea. But he said, I'll tell you what, think about that for a week or 2 weeks or whatever you need to think about it to get where you need to be to understand what I'm telling you. And so I spend the next week thinking about that. Experiences, but not me. What exactly is that? You know, and even in that state of mind, if you take stuff to what I consider to be prayer, right, deep thought, meditation, even though I didn't call it that at the time, something, it winds around in there until you start to see clearly, right, because you're seeking not me. And I start to understand, I start to think about that, the being convinced part of the literature, right, where I am convinced that any lifelong self-will could never be a success. See, I couldn't distinguish between self-will and free will. I didn't know what self-will meant. And what it boiled down to is that my life was a crap show because I was the one living it. Right? Now, I still am yet to reach out to this power that I call God today. I have no concept of that. But what I'm starting to see is that absent of me, things get better. Right? So there was never this conscious God. It was always getting me out of the way. And I'm starting to be able to see this, right? It's starting to make sense to me. And I remember sitting in that chair with that pistol and putting the gun down and saying, I can't do this, right? I have no idea what to do next. And I thought, man, that's got to be my first step experience, right? Something inside of me, I was convinced that I couldn't fix this, and some amount of me in that moment was shifted. And that shift allowed for the Spirit to step in, right? It's like water. Nature cannot exist in a vacuum. So absent one thing, something has to fill it. And so I equated the part that was going to be me and the part that filled that spot to be not me. So now I've got an experience, right? And I've got a second step experience. Because I understand that my trip to detox and the phone conversation that I had with my sister, that these things had always been present in my life. I just saw them as something else, right? I was starting to wake up. I was starting to become conscious of this power that I've now adopted into my life and called God. But it's fledgling, right? It's right there. It's about this long, and I'm being told that you have to put your faith into this thing. And I'm like, man, I get it. I see it. But 6 months from now, I got to have money. 6 months from now, I got to have a place to live. 6 months from now, I'm going to be in a relationship. 6 months from now, 6 months from now, 6 months from now, this guy says, oh, man. Oh, hold up. You're not being asked none of that. You're being asked to take the next step, right? Because now I've got these experiences. Now, what I saw in the first 3 steps was that this concept wasn't foreign to me. It's not foreign to any of us if we didn't think about it. The first step, I don't like the way that I feel, and I can't do anything about that. The second step, I seek something to change that, which means it has more power than I have just by default because it has the ability to do something for me that I can't do for myself. And the third step is I surrender my will to it. And it takes me wherever it takes me. Prison, 23 arrests, 2 divorces, bankruptcy, the loss of my house, the loss of my respect, the loss of my self-respect, the loss of my peers, the loss of estrangement from my children. I've always followed the dictates of a power greater than myself. So this was just a matter of perception. I just had to learn how to see it differently, and I saw it in that small little crevice that was created. Right? I don't have the power to do any of this for myself. This is something that was created. I was moved out of the way. And this power stepped in. Now, it didn't shoot me with a jolt of power because that's been too much power. It gave me just enough to see, right? I've developed a new way of praying. I quit asking God to do things for me. And I started asking him to show me what I can do for myself. Right? Because it's always coupled. What I'm supposed to be doing, what I want, what I aspire for, has always been there. It's always been available to me. I just didn't know how to get it. I still don't know how to get it. All I have the ability to do today through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and living myself, my life by these principles to my fullest extent is get out of the way of the power and allow it to move. Right? So I'm not doing this. I hear guys all the time say, you know, I'm still, 6 months, I was about 6 months, I've been in this place for 10 and a half years, right? I'm now director of the program that I got sober in. And I tell my guys all the time, they'll be sitting there, you know, we have a little devotion and everybody's calling a row and that row will share. Yeah, I got angry yesterday and I've been working on my anger. Hey man, that's the problem. You working on your anger. You work with your anger. God works on your anger. Right? God works on it. I am powerless over changing any part of my life, right? And so this idea that started with this small experience where I was shifted out of the way just enough to let this power step into my life and start growing and expanding as I continued through the sacrifices, right? The self-sacrifices, the sacrifices of my lower nature by doing these things that I didn't want to do. And the way that I continue to grow today is by doing these things that I don't want to do, right? There's always a part of me that doesn't want to get up here on Sunday and speak fear-driven, so I know it's my ego. And what I've found over the years that if I would just do those things, right? At first it was sit down and write an honest inventory of myself. Really look at myself clearly, right? Now, anybody that's new in this room, ask yourself this question. When have you ever sat down and took an honest look at yourself? And I'd be willing to bet the answer is never. Because that's how many times I did it. Never. So what was it that compelled me to do it that time? Is it possible that perhaps this power had shifted you out of the way enough to allow for you to do that? And then it shifts you out of the way enough to allow you to take the next step, and then the next step. Because I can promise you this, I'm not going to you and saying, I'm sorry for anything. Forgiveness does not rest in me. Right? That's an attribute of not me. Right? So the fourth column of the inventory, when I find out where I'm to blame, I'm looking at me. Forgiveness just lies in there because now I see not me. I have to have that if I am to make an amends to somebody, because most of the people on my amends list were people that I felt like did something to me. Right? All 57 of them. They'd all done something to me. From the time I was 8 years old to the time I was 47 years old, these people had all done something to me. And now I'm expected to have forgiveness in my heart. I don't know how to do that. If I could do that, I'd have done it already. Right? There's got to be an absence of me. And the steps are that mechanism that get me out of the way. Now, there's platitudes to this thing. They're all for me, right? I always have to run to a self-imposed crisis in order to reach the next level of spiritual growth, right? So in other words, my spiritual growth is always preceded by some sort of pain. It may be emotional, physical, spiritual. About on February the 12th of last year. Now, when I was about a year sober, I started having what I thought would be acid reflux. It was debilitating. And since I'm not going to go to the doctor because I always got pills from the doctor and I just ain't going, I didn't go. And because I'm smaller than everybody else, I started treating this acid reflux myself. And after a month or two of eating just boiled chicken and taking all these damn omeprazole pills, it quit bothering me. I said, okay, well, that's done healed up. We're good to go. Well, every year after that, it seemed like I put on a little bit of weight, right? And that's not uncommon. I'm getting older. My testosterone's lower. I'm slowing down. So I'm expecting some weight gain. But no matter what I did, right, TRT and going to the doctor and getting, nothing helped this weight gain. It seemed like every year I was putting on not just an average amount of weight, I was putting on weight. And finally, on February 12th of last year, me and my beautiful lady were riding down to my daughter's house to see her, and I was having what I perceived to be a heart attack. And she gave me a couple of Baby Bear aspirin, and it kind of got me over the hard spot. We picked my daughter up, we went to the emergency room, and they do their thing, and they run these damn wires up in me. And the dude looks at me, and I have no idea. And he said, "Have you ever thought about a heart transplant?" Ooh. And I said, "Why the hell would I think about a heart transplant?" You know what I mean? It's like, no, I have not. And he said, "Well," and he kind of did what he did, and he realized that this, I didn't know what was going on. So he goes out into the lobby, and he talks to Kathy, and he talks to my sisters, and he tells them that some time ago, I'd had a massive heart attack, and that my coronary artery was 100% blocked, and that my heart had grown arteries, they call them collateral arteries, around that blockage, and reconnected itself to my heart. And I never missed a beat. And I thought about that, and I spoke with my sponsor about that. And he said, "You think it's important to work with other alcoholics?" Right? So I went from the God that takes care of my drinking and drug problem to the God that can actually solve all my problems. Right? And it elevated me too. Now that's not to say I don't experience fear. Man, I've got my heart 2/3 dead. They call it a name. The whole backup's dead. I got a damn knot. I got a pacemaker and defibrillator implanted in my body. And she said, I would stop at any time. Well, thank you for that too. But every time I go to the cardiologist, and I'm on every 4 or 5 months now, it's a little more they can do about it. He's like, "Man, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to keep doing it." And I said, "Yeah, I intend to do that." Thank you. Does that mean I don't have to pay you today? I'm not going to burn my insurance company for this visit. But through those experiences, it's something that's like, man, what kind of power are we actually dealing with, right? If we're sitting in this room and we just don't want to drink anymore, man, that's a great aspiration. That is a wonderful thing to try to get to. But this power is so much greater and goes so much deeper than just getting me off of drugs and alcohol. That was superficial on the surface, man. That's one of the things that's way back here. I strive for spiritual perfection, right? Which I'll never obtain, and I'm so far from it now, it's ridiculous. If you've asked these guys that know me, they'll be like, "Yeah, you got a long way." Right? But the thing that's amazing to me that I realized sitting down last night watching that movie and this morning in meditation when I'm having these thoughts is that this thing has always been present. It's always been present. I just couldn't see it. And I'm so grateful for the darkest moment of my life when I'm sitting in a room with a pistol in my mouth trying to build the courage to pull the trigger. Because without that experience, I wouldn't be the man that I am today, and I'll never get to be the man that I hope to be, right? I've got a beautiful woman that goes with me every time that I ask her. She's probably against her will a lot of times. I've got a relationship with my daughter who I was estranged from. I've got 2 grandchildren that I'm active in their lives with, right? I've got a host of friends and family and acquaintances and a fellowship that I respect and people that respect me. And that's so much bigger than anything I've ever had, even when I was the top of the world, right? It's so much bigger than that. And it's like, man, I wish I'd known this 30 years ago. But I wasn't ready for it 30 years ago, right? I had to experience what I experienced to get to where I am, right? And I'm grateful for the heartaches. I'm grateful for the bad heart. I'm grateful for the defibrillator. I'm grateful for the fear that I experience when I'm walking and my heart starts hurting. I'm grateful for that because it always makes me see, not me. Thank you guys for letting me share.
Thank you, Roscoe. I think it's safe to say it was a super spiritual. The Lord, going to step down, and everybody will join the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation,